Welcome to Off-Grid Victory. So today's video is a little bit different than what I normally do here on the homestead, but I thought it was important to do it just because I've been getting lots of questions, and recently I was able to teach a class on this. But at any rate, just a quick disclosure, I am not a certified, authorized medical authority in order to give you this kind of medical advice. So this is only for information purposes only. Do these things at your own risk. And with that said, I want to talk about tourniquets on the homestead, and when I like to use them, what types I like to use, and when to deploy them. What type of situation would you be using these things, and all that good stuff on the off-grid homestead. And so yeah, you might not think that this is something that all homesteaders should have or carry, but I really think it's important, and at least this homesteader has one on hand. So let's firstly talk about when you would need these things. So a tourniquet is really to control severe bleeding, either the brachial or the femoral artery, and so these are going to be found in the inner side of your arm and the inner side of your legs. So tourniquets are basically used for your arms and legs, not anywhere else. And the other thing is, when we're on the homestead, I'd like to think about the way I use these tourniquets, and the way I would use it is just like the way you would use it in combat. Now, the current medical standard is to put the tourniquet on at about 2 to 3 inches above the wound. But in combat, as well as in situations in the homestead, just high and tight, as far as you can go up around the leg or up around the arm, in order to control severe bleeding. Now, when do you have severe bleeding? Well, that's usually arterial blood that's commonly called blood that's squirting out. It looks very bright red because it has a lot of oxygen in it. It's not venous blood, that is deoxygenated blood. So yes, you'll be readily be able to tell what is arterial blood. Now, secondly, in today's medical standards, you should be able to put it on and leave the tourniquet on while you're controlling the bleeding, and don't take it off until you get to proper medical authority. Now, in terms of when to use a tourniquet, well, on the homestead, for the things that I'm going to talk about, I put the tourniquet on right away. I don't even wait until I need to actually try to control the hemorrhage with direct pressure, just because a lot of times I'm working by myself, and so let's talk about those things. So I always keep a tourniquet in the car, and I always keep one in the range bag, and these days I'm thinking about carrying one on my chaps on my chainsaw. The reason is, those are the primary venues that would actually call for a tourniquet if an accident happened. Obviously in a car wreck where one of your limbs are pinned and bleeding, while using a chainsaw, let's say, and you have a chainsaw accident, or at the range while you're shooting. And so these are the 3 tourniquets that are approved by most medical standards today. This is the cat tourniquet, this is a soft tourniquet, and this is a rat tourniquet. And so the one that's cheap and most readily available is this cat tourniquet, and I would advise most people to use that. Now, the problem with the cat tourniquet as well as the soft tourniquet, and the soft is a little bit heavier duty, it's mil spec, it has a metal windlass, but these two really constrict movement. And so if you were camping, let's say out in the woods, or let's say I'm just out and cutting a log down, and I happen to get myself into a situation where I would have to control bleeding, these two would work fine. And in fact, I would recommend the cat tourniquet for the cheapest and most useful tourniquet. However, these two tend to restrict movement quite a bit. So let's say I was going camping, I put one of these two things on, in the woods on my legs, I probably wouldn't be able to walk out without an improvised crutch or something like that. Now, on the other hand, this invention here, the rat tourniquet, really is something that can be used very, very well, and that's kind of becoming my favorite go-to. It's kind of a rubberized tourniquet, and so this is going to have to be stored out of the heat and direct sunlight. These are a little bit more robust in terms of that. They're not going to break on you if you left them out a little bit. But the rat tourniquet, if you put this guy on, you have a lot of movement you'll be able to actually use the dexterity in your hands and be able to walk with this on while still controlling bleeding. So the rat tourniquet is definitely becoming my favorite, but the mainstay is the cat tourniquet. Now, the other thing I wanted to quickly talk about is controlling hemorrhage with something like this guy. This is an Israeli bandage. See, it's already been open. The problem with this is it's really a hemorrhage bandage and not a tourniquet, even though they say you can use it for that. So I would not be using that as a tourniquet, and I would be keeping this in the car, this in a range bag, this maybe in my chap, something like that. But I would have at least a few tourniquets around, readily accessible, just for those situations. Now, the other thing on the Homestead that every homesteader should have, especially since you're going to be keeping animals, is this product right here. I bring it into frame. Now, this particular product is called Vet Wrap, and it's a 3M product, and it's basically a bandage kind of, and it can hold cotton in place. It can actually it could actually be used as a tourniquet / hemostat if you place it high. Now, you'll have to go close to this or directly on the skin, but you can use it, and this will act as a tourniquet. So this is a great improvised tourniquet. Now, the main reason that I would recommend just going out and buying one of these things like a rat tourniquet is you can put it on by yourself, and it will be effective. These alternative like this Vet Wrap are here. I'll bring in another one. This one's called, sorry for all this tight camera work, but this one's called Corban, and that's a 3M product, and this will also can be used as a tourniquet because of its strength and because of its elasticity, and because it self-adheres to itself. So Corban or Vet Wrap, I think Corban here is sterile, the Vet Wrap is not. And so these are the improvised tourniquets you can always leave around the house in your medical bag, all of that good stuff, and could be an addition to the regular tourniquets that you already carry. Now, one last thing, I wouldn't advise this, but most homesteaders and most, I guess, like backpackers carry this, and that's just regular old duct tape. A good quality one, but a regular old duct tape. Now, this can also be used as a tourniquet in a pinch. If you wrap it around and around directly onto skin, you can get the tension required to stop bleeding. So this is the improvised stuff, duct tape and this Vet Wrap stuff, and then of course go ahead and buy you a rat tourniquet or a cat tourniquet, a soft tourniquet, whatever kind of floats your boat. But for mobility, the rat tourniquet is, I think, the best. And also for mobility, any of these products, the Vet Wrap or this Corban stuff works really well, as well as duct tape. But for controlling the bleeding, get a real tourniquet like this, or the soft tourniquet or the cat tourniquet, and use it on the Homestead. And don't be afraid to use it. Just go ahead and put it on. I mean, hospitals are available. The emergency trauma guys are pretty good. I mean, if you get there within the first 2 hours, you're not really going to have or sustain any kind of real damage to yourself, to your limbs, by putting these tourniquets on high and tight. And there's another reason for going high and tight too, because a lot of these guys, the real tourniquets, can go right over clothes, and you might not be able to see the wound, or you might have to get out of the area that you're putting the tourniquet on. So these can all do with basically one-handed, and yeah, and if you have to get yourself mobile, you can. And the last thing about the tourniquet use on the Homestead is that yeah, definitely don't be afraid to use it. We have modern medical standards. Don't even try to control the bleeding with direct pressure if you see a lot of blood coming out. It's every second may count. I mean, definitely minutes count, and you can bleed out. So yes, go ahead and don't be afraid to use the tourniquet. And so that's it. Hope you enjoyed this, and if you have any questions, well, I probably won't answer them on the comments section. You can go ask your friendly neighborhood doctor or medic. Alrighty, shalom.